All right. Well, as many of you who've attended our discussions know, most of our topics are related to elder care and, end of life, death and dying, more heavier topics that are very important. And we try to put a positive spin on all of them. But one of the things that we really want to do is throw out some topics that are truly positive and engaging and intergenerational in nature. And I can't think of a better one than pickleball. So to help us do this today, we've got two leaders in the pickleball community, Jeff and Lance, and they're from a unique indoor pickleball center that's the only one in the DC metro region. And I'd love to welcome them to the stage here, and we can get to know them a little bit better and help all of you learn a little bit more about the pickleball community. So I'm going to prompt you all to Jeff and Lance to turn on your mics and cameras. All right, there we go.
We are here. Hello.
Yep. All right. Well, so and I'm going to tell folks, I stumbled into Pickleballerz. This is this indoor pickleball facility, and how I stumbled into them, I received an email that said, hey, you can sponsor a pickleball tournament. And I was thinking, that's something that the companies in our provider community would jump all over, because I've seen the data and research on how wonderful pickleball is for older adults, which we'll dive into. And then I reached out to Jeff, and he was like, yeah, I'd love to be on one of your discussions. But I figured, hey, a good idea. Why don't I take a few lessons over there before we have the discussion? And I have to say, I am completely hooked. The way that you guys deliver this sport to the community is absolutely amazing. So I'm a huge fan of the way you're doing this. But we're going to dive into the broad sport of pickleball and what you're doing over there. But before we do that, let's get to know the two of you a little bit better. Jeff, I'll start with you because you're the founder of this center. And I have to say, I looked up your bio, and you have a doctorate degree in gerontology that you got back in the 60s before there was
before it was fashionable.
What's that?
Before it was fashionable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Tell us a little bit about your background. You've done some really interesting things, and what led you to opening this pickleball center.
Sure, thanks, Steve. And let me just wish everybody in your audience a happy holiday and Merry Christmas and a very happy and a healthy, most important, a healthy New Year. Well, as you mentioned, it was back in 1968, I received a federal grant from the Administration on Aging to take my doctorate in gerontology at Columbia University. Back then, there were only 3 universities in the whole country that offered degrees in that field. And I was an assistant professor at Brooklyn College in the City University of New York at the time. And I just jumped at that opportunity, especially since the government was going to pay for it. But in any event, I eventually left teaching and went into the private sector. And the question is, how did Pickleballerz with a Z come into being? About 55 years ago, I had this crazy idea to open indoor tennis centers. There probably were no more than 5 or 6 in the whole country back then. And the problem was I didn't have any money, nor did I know anybody that had any money. So while it was I thought a great idea, it never came to fruition as far as I was concerned. And several years ago, I was visiting my son and daughter-in-law and my grandson who live in Reston.
That's where I live too.
And we took my grandson to an indoor soccer class. He was 6 or 7 at the time. And as I'm watching this unfold on a gym floor, it just struck me, why not indoor pickleball? Fastest growing sport in America, played by everyone. Let's give it a shot. So I spoke to my son and daughter-in-law about it, and they had never heard of pickleball. And we did a little bit of research. I indoctrinated them into it. And that weekend, we decided to go ahead with it. And we found this site in Chantilly. It's a beautiful building. We had to rip down the whole inside and remake it. And we've got 6 gorgeous courts. We've got a cafe area. We've got restrooms. We've got everything that someone would want to play pickleball.
I love it.
And that's how it came to be.
I love it. No, it's great. And actually Lance is one of your managers, and Lance is going to give us a little tour to the best of our ability with this digital platform here in a bit. But Lance, before we dive into that tour and the sport, tell us a little bit about how you got connected with Pickleballerz.
Well, I was connected with pickleball. I'm a tennis player by trade. I've been playing since I was 14 years old. And in 2009, when I lived in Florida, I was a school teacher, and I had been reading about pickleball and seeing videos, and it still was very, at that time, very much in the developing stages. And there was a community group on Anna Maria Island that had pickleball on Thursday. So I actually took a day off from work just to go and play pickleball. And the community there was very much like any pickleball community you'll find across the country. It's very welcoming. That group was a senior community, but don't be fooled. They were very, very good. And I was hooked very much right there and then. And slowly I've been weaning my way off of tennis. I worked for the USTA for 5 years as a league coordinator, and wanted to get into something different. I was getting a little burned out on tennis, and my cousin, she said, why don't you look for a job in pickleball? And sure enough, the first job I saw was Pickleballerz, assistant director of programming. And I applied, and the one thing led to another, and here I am.
Great. I love it. Well, we'll get that tour here in a moment, but let's just sort of give people an overview of the sport of pickleball. And, I've got my ideas, but why is it so popular? And Jeff, you mentioned, or Lance, you mentioned, that you were a tennis pro, and I think a lot of people probably think that it's like, oh, geez, I was never really good at tennis, I don't want to try pickleball. But give us your thoughts on that.
If you can tie your shoelaces, you're coordinated enough to play pickleball. Pickleball is a fantastic sport. I'm playing tennis over 64 years. And for your audience that may be wondering, am I too old, whatever, I'm 79 years old, and I play pickleball very competitively 3 times a week. I play on a team. I live in Florida. Our team was the Palm Beach County champions last year. We came in second this year. So we're a very competitive team. You're not ever too old to play pickleball. It is a social game. It gives you plenty of exercise. It's as competitive as you want it to be, or as non-competitive as you want it to be. It's a little bit for everybody. It's safe. It's easy to play. It's inexpensive in terms of equipment. So it's all things to all people. I don't know if you want me to get into any of the rules, but there's basically 1 or 2 very simple rules. But I think what especially for the people watching and participating today, I think what makes it the most attractive is the fact that you don't need to know anybody to come and play. you can just show up and we'll have you playing immediately, because we have something that's called drop-in. You just show up and you'll be paired with people your own skill level. And that's what makes it unique and what makes it different from something like tennis, where you have to have other people of your caliber to play with, and you have to arrange that in advance. You don't need to do that with pickleball. You just need to show up.
Now, is that, since my experience with pickleball is at a hotel where my wife and I kind of had, a lesson, and you're a center, is that the way it is at all sort of places that promote pickleball? Like if they have drop-in, are they matching up, or is this something that's unique to your platform?
No, not unique at all. This is
Okay.
the common thread for pickleball is the sociability of the game. You meet people that you didn't know before, you play pickleball with them, and you end up as great friends.
Now, Lance, when we talk about tennis, I think one of the things that actually Lisa, your instructor, had to tell my group that was taking the lesson is you guys are running around too much. Because in tennis you're running around, but actually having just an athletic stance and letting your arms. So maybe speak to that a little bit, like the difference between tennis and pickleball in terms of the physical activity.
Well, pickleball is very much, if you take a lesson with Lisa or most any US PPR pro, what they talk about is your stance and your balance and your core, and getting into a position where your feet are in place and you're essentially at the net. In pickleball, you're always trying to move forward, or at least making the effort to get there. Once you get there, you're taking what we call a wide stance, which is very good for balance. You're pretty much rocking back and forth. Most of the time, there are times where you have to take a step in one direction to get the ball. The thing about tennis and pickleball is, in tennis, if you come to the net a lot and you're older, you don't move as well, or if you're injured, the ball goes over your head, the point is over. Where in pickleball, that doesn't happen very often, where you're getting lobbed and the point ends. If you get lobbed in pickleball, you still have a pretty good chance of reaching the ball. And I think that's a big difference between tennis and pickleball. Is they're not as much moving involved, but it's still very much a balance and a strength sport where you have to be set and be flexible.
So one thing that that I love is that, like, when I walked into your center, there was a kids class going on. There were older adults playing, younger folks, guys that looked like they just walked out of a gym. It was just this melting pot of all different folks. Is USA Pickleball, is that the governing body? Is that, or one of the governing bodies?
There are a few different governing bodies of pickleball. One deals directly with the sport and the rules in general. And then there are other two major bodies for professional pickleball as well, which are kind of in competition with each other right now, running their own different tours, which is good for the sport.
Yeah, the reason I brought that up is so I'm sharing my screen here. Another segment of pickleball that you can see here on the USA Pickleball site is adaptive in wheelchair pickleball. I don't know if that's anything that either of you have been involved with, but adaptive sports are, amazing. And the fact that you could see where somebody in a wheelchair with mobility issues can still participate in pickleball. Absolutely.
I've played people that are in wheelchairs in pickleball. There are a few minor rule changes in pickleball for a wheelchair. I believe, I know you can have at least one of the wheels in the kitchen. I don't know if you can have both of them in, but certainly wheelchair pickleball is a lot more adaptive and successful than wheelchair tennis can be. There are people that play wheelchair tennis, but the size of the court and the speed of the ball definitely lends itself to a better sport for people that are in a wheelchair.
Yeah,
if I might, Steve, only because Lance just used the term the kitchen, And
Yep,
many
I was
folks
gonna
joining
say.
may not know what that is, or may know what it is, but not as it relates to pickleball. Another word for the kitchen is the no volley zone. It's an area on the court that you're not permitted to step into and hit the ball before it bounces. You're only allowed to step into that area if the ball first bounces in that area. And it's been euphemistic, it's the no volley zone, but it's been euphemistically called the kitchen. And that's one of the very few rules of pickleball.
And actually here, hold on a sec. I think I can pull up let me share my screen here and we can,
Yeah, if you can bring up a,
yeah, so.
there you go. Okay, the no
so-
volley zone, as you can see, is on either side of the net. And which is another reason, again, to point out what Lance said about if someone were to lob, because you're not standing in that very light blue area, you're only playing in the dark blue area. It's not very far to go back to hit something that was hit high in the air. So the court coverage is much, much easier. And if I would relate the difference between tennis and pickleball in terms of the physicality, tennis is a game that you move laterally a lot, side to side. Pickleball, you move forward and back. There's not a lot of side to side movement, as Lance indicated. Once your balance is set and your feet are set, you may sway a little bit, but rarely are you going to take steps to either side, unless you're playing singles. But as we get older, most of us only play doubles.
Yeah, and okay, we got a good question here from Bob Hoffman. He says, are there any restrictions on overhead slams or other hard hit shots that might injure an opponent? Another thing that I think is important to talk about is the ball. It's a wiffle ball. And yes, it can hurt, but it's pretty, it doesn't hurt anywhere near like a tennis ball.
It's a plastic ball. It has holes in it like a wiffle ball. And the answer is yes, you can hit the ball overhead, but only if you're standing outside of that non-volley zone. So you cannot hit the ball on the fly or smash it if you're very close to the net.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much, even when the ball is hard hit, it really does slow down, and it doesn't, one of the challenges is it doesn't bounce I should say it barely bounces. And that's one of the hard things that you got to learn when you're learning the sport is that you miss a lot of balls because you assume this thing that's flying across is going to bounce, and you're pretty much hitting it pretty low there.
The other thing I would mention, just as it occurred to me about our courts and our facility, is we use a Plexipave surface with many, many layers that's designed to prevent joint injuries. It's designed to give a little bit of a give so that it's especially good for older adults.
That's great. Okay, let's see. Okay, got a few folks wanted to, everybody can see Cynthia Taylor's comment. I love pickleball, and now my daughter, grandchildren, niece, and significant others love it too. Because we have a court at our church fellowship hall, I get to see my niece and nephew and their friends at least every month. We have a pickleball champion who helps me run our program. It's a joy. We're all ages, playing from 14 to 70, and they're in Owings Mill, Maryland. Let's see. Okay. Kathy Regner asks, how is the game scored and what is the duration of the pickleball game? And this is something that I really think makes it appealing too.
Yeah, it's an 11-point game. And you can only score a point when you're serving. So a typical game lasts 10 to 15 minutes. And then you normally would switch partners or whatever, or continue. So it's not this long, tiring game. You can play one game and then rest and come back if you'd like. I did see there was a question. Someone wanted to know our address, where we were located.
Yep, and I dropped that in there, and in Chantilly by the Chantilly Convention Center. But we have we have people from all over the place. So I've got a question. This is a two-part question. Eileen asked, do you have any facilities in Montgomery County, Maryland? But also, do you have plans to expand Pickleballerz to other locations?
That's a definite maybe. And the reason I say that is we opened up a year ago, October, and there was something going on worldwide that sort of prevented us from being as successful as we hoped we would have been. And that was, of course, the pandemic. Because the game is social and sociable, part of the great part of it would be staying around and being social after you play. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, many people would play and then quickly leave, and then many people didn't want to play because we were indoors. That's now starting to open up. So to answer the question, I'm giving a very long-winded answer to a very easy question is we would love to expand. We have to first really get everything down on this one first.
I love it. And I commend you on your the way that you're running the business. Like I said before, the learning experience that me and my brother have gone through with you guys has been amazing. And I can visualize these all over the country. I think as I was saying to Lance, it's sort of what's unique about Pickleballerz is it's exclusive to pickleball. So I dropped some info on some Montgomery County parks pickleball programs for folks. If, you know, obviously if you're not in Fairfax County or Loudoun County, you know, check out like the Racket clubs. They may convert a court or two, but you guys are exclusive, which I think is what really makes your model special.
I agree. And that was our plan is not to have been all things to all people.
Yep. And Bob Hoffman has a question. Do you have a recommendation on the best racket to buy for a beginner? And it's not called a racket, correct?
Called a paddle. And Lance would be best qualified to answer that question.
Nice. One of the services we have here at Pickleballerz is we have a multitude of paddles that people can demo when they show up here from all kinds of qualities. We have Pickleballerz paddles, which we usually give to our first-time people that are going out there and playing pickleball for the first time. And then we have a gradual, I don't really want to call it higher quality because some people at a high level play with a very basic paddle because that is what they are comfortable with. But we have a lot of paddles that you can try through multiple manufacturers. Lisa has a really good grasp on, since she does our beginner pathway classes, she knows what paddles have been most successful with her emerging students. But we have a paddle pretty much for everybody. We encourage you to come in and try it out.
Yeah, and again, that's one thing that I really appreciate about your model is that these the higher quality pickleball paddles are, you know, over $100. They're not too expensive, but yeah, you know, I mean, if you're a beginner, do you want to buy something like right out of the gate? And the ability to try different paddles and the lessons that you guys offer are so affordable, but then the going in and doing the open play, like how much does that cost? I was sort of like, holy cow, you guys need to charge more.
Well, no, I think all of our services are very affordable. Our open play for a non-member is $10, and that's for between 2.5 to 3 hours of available time to play. Open play, you don't have to show up at the beginning and stay the whole time. You can show up halfway through open play if you just want to play for an hour. So there's a lot of flexibility with that as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. Okay, let's see.
We
Oh,
do have a
and
membership, Steve, excuse me.
yeah,
Just again, we do offer a membership program that you pay monthly, discounts if you want to pay annually, but most of our clients pay monthly for membership. And that basically discounts all of our services. And non-members are more than welcome as well, but they don't get the discounts that a member would get.
let's see. Kathy asks, are there any special shoes to wear on the court?
Well, one of the shoes we ask you, well, there's a couple type of shoes we specifically ask you don't wear, obviously dress shoes or anything with a wooden heel. Running shoes also are not really appropriate for these courts because one, they don't give you the support you need for quickly changing direction, and two, they can mark the courts, which we definitely want to avoid. Tennis shoes or specific pickleball shoes are really the best shoes to wear in here.
Great. And Bob, I always like to give somebody a gold star when they ask a bunch of great questions. And Bob Hoffman says, Bob, you get the gold star today, but are there ever is there a referee, or is everything on the honor system? How do unresolved disputes get resolved?
That's a great question. Well, Bob, if you've ever played tennis socially, you know that you call your own lines. And that's the way it is in pickleball, unless you're playing in sanctioned tournaments, at which point they do have referees and lines people. But for most amateurs, 99.9% of the time, it's on the honor system.
I love it. All right. Well, and then let's see. Cynthia Taylor says USAPA has places to play that lists places to play pickleball by state. Yeah, doing some, if you're not in Northern Virginia, doing some Google searches. But I will tell you, and you can hear from the stories that Jeff and Lance have said, no matter where you go, the pickleball community is welcoming. While we're waiting for Pickleballerz to spread across the country, and there's one next to every McDonald's. Let's see. Well, Lance, one of the things that we're going to try here is, let's see if we can give folks a digital tour of of Pickleballerz. So you want to give it a shot, and I believe there's a ladies tournament going on, or a group going on, but
now there's a clinic going on right now on court 6 with one of our 201 classes, and that is 201 is one of our pathway classes, which is 3 classes long. Once you complete the pathway, you're pretty much ready to play in our open play, and we have open plays for pretty much every level. I'll walk through with the camera out. Jeff, if you want to give a little detail as I'm walking.
Sure, be happy to do that.
Oh, this is my office. Let's get out of here.
There you go. Lower the camera, Lance, so we can see it.
Yeah, there we go.
Some of our friendly members.
Yeah, the ceiling height is a little over 18 feet, so lobbing is not a problem. You can see if you was our pro shop to the left.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see now. I've lost it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they've got, they sell pickleball apparel, the paddles here, and this is the lobby when you come in.
Absolutely. We also have, in addition to, as Lance said, loaner paddles, we have new paddles as well. And that's Beverly. She's, I think that's Beverly. I'm looking at a very small thumbnail screen. If that's Beverly, that's my daughter-in-law, and she is the chief operating officer.
I love it.
And in addition to the demo paddles we have, we also have used paddles. So it's an opportunity to buy really high-level paddles at a huge discount. People
Excellent.
sometimes buy a paddle and then they decide they don't like it. So they resell it and we're the reseller. Anyway, you can see we have courts and Lance is now walking toward the back of the facility. Steve, is there any way that you can, right now you're centered on my screen, we can show Lance centered? So
Yeah, let me, here, I'm gonna spotlight.
this is
there.
our cafe area. There we go. That's much better. This is our cafe, and we have some limited hot food, some pizza, and other things like that. We have a wine and beer license. We have these screens all around the facility so that people can see what's happening. Can see other people playing. If there are major tournaments going on, like there was just one in Indian Wells, a national tournament, we might show that closed circuit while people are playing. This is a little dinking court where you can just practice little what we call dink shots, but you might refer to them as a drop shot.
How many total courts do you have in there? I lost count.
We have 6 courts. And as I said, they're plexipave courts, so they do give a little bit on your knees and your hips. And there you saw that young lady just hit an overhead, and you could see it didn't go very fast or very hard.
Mm-hmm.
The game must be started with an underhand serve. And then you return it, and now the point is played. And as long as you're standing behind that orange area, you can volley the ball.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. Let's see. Jennifer Brown says, have you experienced any conflicts with tennis players for the use of public courts for pickleball? How are those issues addressed and resolved?
Well, obviously, we're not experiencing any conflicts in our pickleball center, but many public areas, they put tape down to line their tennis courts for pickleball. And I think what they do in many cases is they limit the time on the days. They might have it on Thursday from 3 to 6 pickleball, and so there's no tennis that day. I've heard of them doing things like that.
Okay.
That's Lisa, by the way.
That's Lisa. That's my teacher. And if you can get her, your experience will be amazing to learn this sport.
She's now doing these little dink shots. And this is, again, a way to learn. You can see that how easy it is to make contact with the ball. It's so much easier than tennis. I'm playing tennis over 60 years. This is so much easier.
Yeah, I agree. And let's see. Cynthia says, I've been looking at locations for indoor pickleball to rent and set up courts. Could you be available to offer ideas for opening a small pickleball facility or mentoring? Do you offer consulting or anything like that?
Yeah, we'd be happy to talk to you privately about that, Cynthia. And as I said to Steve earlier, I would be happy to pick a 2 or 3 hour period, maybe a 3 to 4 hour period, and close our facility just for your particular group, whether it be an assisted living facility or a residential care facility or just a senior center or the staff of such, and come on over to Pickleballerz and take advantage and see what we have to offer.
I love it. I think, yeah, so what we'll do is I'll work with Jeff to schedule one of our live events at Pickleballerz, and we can network and connect, and you all can see firsthand how the game is played and try it out. But I'll make sure to share your contact info, because I do think that this would be a fun team building opportunity for some of the organizations that are in our community. Also, bringing your residents over. If you're a senior living community, have your residents come over and learn this sport here. And then the Pickleballerz team might be able to help you set up some temporary courts. I know one of the appealing things for a lot of groups is that you can use these portable nets if you've got a space, maybe a parking garage or a sport court. It's not as great as being at Pickleballerz, but it enables your residents in your community to practice the sport. Travis asks, is the net the same height as a tennis court, or is it a little bit lower? Whoops. Oh, you're muted.
I am?
Oh, no. Oh, sorry. You didn't say anything. Oh, okay. Got it. No, you're not muted. Great. So the net is lower than a traditional tennis court.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great.
Just by a couple of inches.
And Cynthia says, beautiful facility. Congratulations. Looking forward to visit. Please open a center like this in Montgomery County. Such a great, Dorothy says, such a great presentation. All of my friends rave about this sport. I can't wait to try it. Well, these are great comments. And oh, okay, Bob, you might lose your gold star. He says, has there been any doping scandals yet amongst senior pickleballers as they're drug testing?
No, we've been asked by people that have lost for their opponent to take a urine test, but we haven't actually done that.
Well, I can tell you that Lisa in our class, she's constantly telling all of us to stop hitting the ball as hard as we are hitting it, because you can make this ball, if you hit the sweet spot on that paddle, it doesn't require much physical effort at all.
One of the reasons that she really focuses on taking pace off the ball is that pickleball, although pickleball has there are two really different types of ways you can play pickleball. One of them is pretty much a dinking game, which Jeff talked about while I was walking around. And another one is what we call the bangers, that hit everything as hard as they can. The best way to do it is to have be somewhere in between where you can do both of those things. And what Lisa tries to really instill upon her emerging players is start slow, gain the control, work your way up.
Yep. No, I agree. Let's see. Oh, okay. I actually looked this up, but I want you guys to answer this. Joanne Evans asked, how did it get the name pickleball?
Take that, Jeff, or you want me to do it?
Go ahead.
Okay. There are a few different stories. The story that, one of the stories is pickleball was founded really, and the beginning parts of pickleball were by a state senator in Washington State. They were trying to find a way in a game that they could play in their driveway, and they had these wooden paddles and these balls, and I'm holding a couple of them right here. This is an indoor gym floor ball. We do not use this kind of ball here. This is for gym floors that are very slick. And then these are more outdoor balls that we do use here at Pickleballerz, because our court is an outdoor court, that we use these balls because they get a little more grab. These balls float more. These balls have more pace to them and are used more often in tournaments. What they were trying to decide, the story goes for pickleball, was that these people had a dog named Pickles that kept stealing the ball while they were playing. So hence the name Pickleballerz, pickleball.
Let's see, we've got Cynthia Taylor on, and Cynthia, I believe, is in Baltimore, and she just received a grant that she wanted to share with folks about pickleball. Cynthia?
Hi, and I'm really enjoying this. As I said in my text, I love pickleball. Are you able, raise your hand if you can hear me okay, please?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went to a demo at Coppermine, which is a racket and fitness club, and got a free lesson, and then signed up and took lessons. And was very excited, came back to my church, we put down a court in the fellowship hall, and the pro from Coppermine came and taught us, taught my pastor, our finance chair, and a couple others the game. And I got permission to start a program. Lynn then told me about USAPA's grant for nonprofits. They will give you $500. You have to, of course, apply. You can purchase a net. The net is under $200, about $149. You have to become a member. We wrote our proposal. It didn't take that long, but in the interim, Lynn Colburn, who was also my teacher, is an incredible teacher, loaned us a net to use for our program until our grant came through. And we purchased some paddles. She recommended some rallies that were very inexpensive, but we have since gotten more to use for our program. And with those funds, we eventually put in our court, got our equipment, got a rule book. Then COVID hit around, and we were able, even during COVID, here's what happened. We had an old basketball court outside, and we were able to get another grant of over $2,000 from my denomination for pickleball, because we were able to share what a health benefit it was, and has been since we've gotten the grant. We got permanent lines painted on the outside court, the inside court, got more equipment, and it's just been growing. I put in the chat about Lutherville. Lynn introduced us to Lutherville. They have an enormous program. Our program is probably around 15 people who regularly come. But during COVID, we were able to do a class for some homeschoolers with my grant money. I hired Lynn, and she trained them in pickleball. My grant money also allows me to buy rackets for young people who would not otherwise be able to afford a racket, because even though it's not quote expensive, for people who don't have money. So we wanted to make the sport more accessible to everyone. COVID has interfered with that, but any young person who really likes the game and is interested, we will buy them a good racket. So that's just
paddle. But
That's
wow,
fabulous. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And I would very much like to look into doing something similar to what you have done. I don't know. I don't know if you all have ever been to New York City to Spin. Spin is a table tennis place that Susan Sarandon started, and it has a little cafe. It's a little bit more upscale than yours, but you know, she has a lot more money, and it is in Manhattan. And they have table tennis. That's all it is, table tennis tables. And they have pros that come there and play, and families. It's not cheap, but it's very similar to what you are doing with your organization, making it not just a place to play, but a place where there's a pro shop, a place where there's a cafe. So thank you.
This is great. Oh, before you jump off, Michelle wanted to know, where is your church?
We're in Randallstown.
What's the name of the church?
It's Mount Olive United Methodist Church, and it's in Randallstown.
Okay.
And we would love to have her. And I just also want to say, the gentleman who helped me came from, I can't believe it. He came from, I think Mississippi. I don't remember now. Oh gosh, I went blank. But he has played in a lot of tournaments. He's come in ninth in like out of 1,000 some people. He has really helped our players to develop a higher level of skill. And he plays almost every day of the week. He plays in Baltimore City. I'm in Baltimore County. He goes everywhere, and he's also working with the VA to have a team for the VA to go to the nationals. So we've been very blessed to have him. I think he's from Biloxi. Yes.
Well, this is great, and thank you for sharing that, Cynthia.
Thanks for posting the grant.
You bet. And you know, like, and again, Bob Hoffman he's pushing the limits of his gold star. He says, I thought that there was a strict constitutional requirement for separation of church and pickleball. But as she was talking about this, like, think about, here is a sport that a church, community centers, retirement communities can embrace, and you can get involved and bring your community together in such a positive way. That's amazing. And I did post the grant
Right.
in chat there.
And that grant is also available to middle schools and high schools who want to start programs at their schools. So, and I know he's joking because we know that a church is a nonprofit.
Yeah.
I used to work for IRS. Ooh.
Yep. But no, this is great. So thanks so much, Cynthia. And let's see, the wow, and then we'll share with you all, because like I could see Jeff and Lance, your team might help some of our community members not only learn at your center, but if they wanted equipment or anything like that, you could help them design their program as well.
Absolutely.
Great. Wow. Well, we have really burned through a lot of great questions. And I think we did a halfway decent job of introducing people to this great sport. I'm really looking forward to scheduling an event there at Pickleballerz for our community, but I also hope that some of the folks in the audience spread the word and get out there and get involved with you guys, because you're doing some amazing things. And like I said, hopefully we will see you soon in a lot of different regions of the DC metro area and beyond.
And if you happen to be in the Fairfax area, the Chantilly area, please stop by and say hello, introduce yourself. Lance is there all the time. We have to get a bed for him in the back because he's there so much. But by all means, stop by and say hello.
I love it.
And we do run a program on Mondays from 4 to 5 called Silver Paddles for people 65 and over.
Right.
Lisa runs it. It's a very senior friendly. It's a great workout. Make no mistake. And Lisa's always looking to welcome new people.
I love it. You guys are doing great stuff. We're so glad that our paths have crossed, and I'll be back there for my 301 class on Wednesday, I think. So
as I say, Steve, we offer no cure for pickleball addiction. We only enable you.
well, it's a healthy addiction, that's for sure. So thanks a lot. Talk to everybody soon.
Thanks, Steve.